So today, doing something a little bit different, I am joined by the wonderful Emily Spence, and I'm sure most of you will know who she is, but she is a wonderful ED recovery coach, and she was my coach. So we have worked together in a different capacity, and now we are working as, colleagues, as peers, and she is one of the big reasons that I do the work that I do today. So welcome, Emily.
Oh, thank you so much. Honestly, it is a joy to be here with you in this space doing this work now together. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here and to talk. And I think we've got some questions we're going to be answering. So yeah, I'm just excited to be here.
Yeah, it's so good to have you on the channel, and that's exactly right. So we've got a bunch of questions that we're going to kind of go through as sort of quickly as we can. We probably won't get to all of them, but we'll do some and see how we go. So if you're ready, shall we jump in?
I am very ready.
All right, let's do this. So the first question, I've written them down, is okay, I never feel full. How much am I supposed to eat if literally nothing fills me mentally?
Yes, and oh my goodness, do I remember that place in my own recovery journey? Because for anyone who doesn't know me, I work as an eating disorder recovery coach and do that and love it, but also very much a element of my coaching experience has come from a lived experience place and my own journey to full recovery. And I absolutely remember the place where I felt insatiable. I would encourage the person who has asked this question to have a look at all of the content and information that is out there in the recovery space around the topic of extreme hunger. Also, feast eating, reactive eating, post-starvation hyperphagia for a fancy term, but basically it is and refers to that very normal physiological reaction where a body that has been through a period of malnutrition, period of starvation, a period of restriction, actually when it is then given access to food is really, really hungry. And it is such a normal physiological, biological reaction, but that doesn't make it not overwhelming, scary at times. And I very, very much remember that place. And
Mm.
so I think that is the first thing I would say in response to this. I would really encourage somebody who is the person who's asking this question and anyone who relates to this to have a look at all of the information that's out there about the topic of extreme hunger, about why that happens, how normal it is, and about actually the fact that the solution to that lies in permission.
It's about honoring all of that hunger. And the more that you can do that, the more you become in tune with maybe feeling moments of satisfaction, right? Like when you first start, leaning into all of that hunger, it does feel endless. It feels like you will never possibly be satisfied. You won't feel satisfied mentally. And I think that's the scary part, right? Like it feels like
Yes.
it's never going to end. But the more that you respond to it, the more your body trusts you, the more it is re-nourished, and the more it starts to maybe occasionally send you these like little signals of like, ah, that's maybe enough for now.
Yeah,
And I think that that's the hard thing to believe when you're in the thick of it is that
really
there
hard.
will be any sort of respite. There will be that moment of mental satisfaction at some point. But if you're
Yes.
not feeling it now, that's okay.
Yes.
It's okay to not feel satisfied and keep on eating.
Yeah, yeah, abs. And that's the thing. There is a real need there. And it is about acknowledging the fact that one of the most common misconceptions or points of misunderstanding in recovery is around just how much food is required to fully
Hmm.
repay that energy debt. And I think it's important to bring into this discussion here the truth that this can show up at any and all stages of the recovery journey. Because I'm sure if there are people listening to this, there may be people thinking, yes, but,
Hmm.
and following that will be any number of different reasons why, because of their particular situation, because of the journey they've come on so far, because of how long they've been unwell for, because of weight that they've gained already, because,
Yeah.
because. there's a reason why actually this doesn't apply to them and that there
Mhm.
isn't that permission there. And it's so important to shine a very bright light on that and recognize extreme hunger can and does show up at any and all stages of recovery journeys. It's so important to recognize that tendency to, because of XYZ, it doesn't apply to me,
Yep.
to acknowledge the fact that you are not the outlier in this, that this truth of recovery applies to everybody in
Hmm.
recovery, and to really come back again to that solution in permission to be honoring hunger.
Yes, and it's that permission that is unconditional. It's not that, oh, it was only allowable earlier in my recovery or later or whatever excuse he even just sort of comes up with. It is like that permission is unconditional. And that's what you're having to teach your body and your brain that it is allowed. And I think the only other thing that I just want to bring in, and you've mentioned it already, is like, I think one of the other misconceptions about extreme hunger is that it is more valid if it's physical. And I think if
So
I had
true.
only ever listened to my physical hunger, I don't even know that I'd call that extreme. Like it
Yeah.
was the extreme mental hunger. And I think that this question is really getting at the idea that this is extreme mental hunger. Like I am never satisfied mentally. And it's like, okay, you've got extreme levels of mental hunger, and that is nowhere in any way, shape, or form less valid than physical hunger. Like that needs to be honored just as much. And honestly, I don't think I'd be where I am if I didn't.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. The vast majority
Mm.
of my extreme
Yeah,
hunger came in the form of mental
that's
symptoms.
it.
And actually, when we look at the impact restriction, starvation has on the body, it makes a lot of sense that the majority of those symptoms are communicated mentally,
Of
because
course.
physical symptoms are also another energy demanding thing to try and
Yeah.
communicate. And so at the end of the day, a body that can center food by having your brain, which is the the computer
Hmm.
center of your body, the can center focus on food in that way, is a really smart body. Again, this all comes back. You can trust your body, you
Yes.
can trust your hunger, and your hunger is not the enemy in this. Your hunger at the end of the day there is the thing which is going to save your life. And I know when I speak here from lived experience, absolutely,
Yeah.
that mental hunger, that incessant drive in the direction of an abundance of food was the thing
Yeah.
that saved my life.
Yeah. Yep. 100%
Yeah.
wrapped up beautifully. All right.
Cool.
Moving on. Question number two. All right. How to approach exercise and movement in recovery.
So, to try and answer this in any kind of
Yeah.
concise manner at all,
Yeah.
I think I think that anyone who spent any time in the recovery space will have heard that rest is really important and that there is an absolute need to be prioritizing rest. I think that something which is very important to address in relation to this question is the fact that sometimes in recovery, there is a need to be disengaging from movement, productivity,
Hmm.
busyness, exercise, whatever that may look like, for reasons akin to rewiring.
Yeah.
Because if there is any degree of neural network around compulsive productivity, compulsive movement, compulsive exercise, etc., or any degree of neural network that provides resistance or supports resistance to rest, there is a need from an opposite action perspective to disengage
Hmm.
from that compulsive movement, exercise, etc., and to prioritize rest. But also, completely aside from that, from a nutritional rehabilitation perspective, there is also an absolute need to be giving your body the space and time to use the nourishment it is getting to be
Yeah.
able to do that healing work and to give your body that space to rest, which,
Yes.
as I said, yes, it's important in terms of rewiring, but it's also fundamental for that refeeding and nutritional rehabilitation process.
Yeah, I mean that sums it up, doesn't it? Like it is crucial from both perspectives. I think where people do get into a bit of sort of, I don't know, difficulty is often when they have done a lot of that resting and from a nutritional rehabilitation perspective, they've done a lot, maybe all, but a lot of that work. And then they think, okay, surely it's fine and safe for me to re-engage with exercise. And that can even sometimes be encouraged by treatment professionals. And I think there can be that misunderstanding that actually there is still a lot of neural networks that are tied in there and they take a lot longer to rewire than the physical side of things. And I think even at that point, it might be like, oh, okay, well, we can go for a half an hour walk. And all of a sudden, that walk just reignites the neural networks and that becomes obsessive. That becomes the minimum you have to do every day. And I think that that's why, I guess, from my perspective, in my lived experience and what I work with clients with, is really on, if in doubt, like err on the side of caution. What
Yes.
is the worst that's going to happen if you put that exercise, that productivity, that busyness on a shelf for just a bit longer? Do you know, I think a really bit of a red flag is when people are like, I really want to get back to it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I feel like you've touched here on a few of my key points of passion in relation to this, in my relation to this topic.
Yeah,
Absolutely, I think it's incredibly important to apply the if in doubt
yeah,
component. And absolutely, at the end of the day, leaving movement, exercise, etc., on a shelf for a bit longer isn't going to do any harm to your recovery journey, as opposed to
yeah,
bringing it off too soon,
yeah.
absolutely can. And also, you spoke there of that red flag in the urgency. Absolutely.
Mm,
This is a place where there needs to be real brutal self-honesty alongside that if in doubt approach, and really looking at the motivators, the drivers
mhm.
behind. And I do think that one of the best indicators for a state of relationship with movement is your relationship with rest. And so getting really honest with yourself about where are you at in your relationship with rest? Does rest feel easy,
Yeah,
peaceful,
yeah,
free? Is there any degree at all of itchy scratchiness, of resistance? And this needs to show up not just in terms of drive to go for a walk or drive to
mhm.
do any form of maybe more structured exercise. This
Yeah,
absolutely includes, tidying up the house, doing different jobs, putting the bins out, any kind of resistance to sitting,
hmm,
bum on seat,
hmm,
resting. And it
hmm.
can also extend over into that rest in terms of not just the physical rest, but the emotional and mental rest as well. Like
Yeah,
looking at actually, are you able to just sit and, for want of a better thing, do as close to nothing as
yeah,
possible? We can all know the difference between our version of really truly resting and
hmm,
our, we're kind of sort of resting, but we're also kind of doing these other things. It's really important that we look and get really honest, and
hmm.
anybody in their journey gets very honest. I also think you spoke there of one of my, as I said, key passion points, which is that often when it comes to the recovery journey, movement and the reintroduction of movement is looked at solely through the lens of that nutritional rehabilitation. And like I said at the start, yes, we must acknowledge both sides of this. You
Hmm.
could be absolutely completely free and at peace in rest and have no disordered network associated with movement whatsoever, but still,
Yeah,
from a nutritional rehabilitation perspective, need to be prioritizing that rest.
hmm,
Equally, and I think this is something from my own experience, but also very much through my work as a coach, I see this time and time again. People absolutely do, as you spoke of, get to that point where there may be external factors and intrinsic factors that
hmm.
are saying, oh, well, I've done this and I've done this and I've done, and here's this sign of progress. Surely now I should be. And that absolutely can be influenced and sort of pressured almost from treatment teams. And it's a
Yep.
point that I have passionate conversations with treatment teams about, that
Yes,
actually we mustn't overlook the importance of neural rewiring, because
that's
at the end of the day, that is the thing that is going to either support or negate that true reclaiming of
hmm.
joyful freedom with movement. And again, often we come back to the idea of shelving. That is often the thing which leads us back, when we get very honest, to needing to put something on a shelf
Yes.
for a bit longer. And I would encourage anyone not to just slightly kick it down the road and say, oh, okay, I'll think about this next week.
Yeah.
But actually, if you get honest with yourself and you see yourself in that need to be rewiring,
Yeah.
say to yourself, right, I'm going to put this down. I'm going to put in my diary. I'm going to revisit this
Yes.
thing in 3 months' time.
Hmm.
And at
Yeah.
the end of the day, if even the idea of doing that brings any degree of resistance up, you have your answer straight away there.
Yep.
Put it in that thing and have that as a point to then revisit it. And in the now, come back to doing that bold work to
Yes.
be rewiring and disconnecting that disordered ooh, disconnecting that disordered interplay between movement and food and rest and permission.
Yes, yes, yes. And I so agree. And I think it's also that like by putting it on a shelf for long enough, you do give yourself a chance to rewire. And you also give yourself a chance to reassess if maybe it was the eating disorder who kept saying you actually really love running. Like you love running. You feel good after you run. And yeah, I'm sure you do because your eating disorder is delighted. The anxiety decreases when you run. It might turn out that in 3 months, in 6 months, in a year, once you have totally rewired that, you think about running, you're like, oh, no, nothing
Yeah.
could be worse. Or you have a genuine desire to do it. And then you've got this really clear, really confident decision that actually that is something that I like to do. And I'm not in any doubt that this is my eating disorder driving it. But you have to give it long enough to be
Yes.
able to make that choice.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad you spoke to that there because, when I said about putting it to that 3 month mark, it isn't about getting to that 3 months and going, right, okay, yep, done that now,
Yep.
sorted. So I'm just going to shut that away and I'm going to bring back all these things. It absolutely is about at that point reevaluating,
Yeah.
bringing that self-honesty at that moment
Yeah.
as well. And absolutely kind of making space for the ways in which your relationship with movement beyond recovery
Mhm.
may look and feel different to the ways it has before. And there may need to be work to do in terms of identity and
Yeah.
values and looking at actually the relationship you want to have with movement. And also sometimes the relationship that is going to be supportive of you, not just getting recovered, but staying
Yeah.
recovered. And I
Yeah.
think that, there's often lots of valuable work that can be done there, but definitely there will be things that may right now feel like
Hmm.
intolerable to let go of that you stick on a shelf. And when it comes to that point, 3, 6, 12
Yeah.
months down the line where you think, no, actually, honestly reflecting, now I think I am ready. There will be
Hmm.
things that you'll look at and go, no, that's just going to gather
Yep.
dust up there forever.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. And you can do that from a place of confidence. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Next question is how do you know if you're doing enough to rewire?
Oh, I
Big,
love that.
meaty one. It's a good
Yes,
one.
another one, another
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
love that question though. I think so again, this word that seems to have come up quite a lot in the last, I think, of honesty. It
Yeah.
is incredibly important in the recovery journey to get brutally honest with yourself. And I think the reason I use that word brutally is because sometimes I think when I reflect on my own journey, there was that honesty that I needed to have that I really didn't want
Mm.
to have.
Hmm.
It wasn't about the kind of niceties of honesty. It was
Yeah.
very much about getting down to the raw facts and truth and the
Yeah.
reality. And actually, what I saw when I shone a very honest light on the situation. So, starting point, the very fact that this question surfaces, if anyone ever finds themselves going, am I really doing enough? That in
Mm.
itself, to me, sends a little bit of a,
Hmm.
interesting that that is coming up for you. Because very often, when there is any degree of frustration or doubt,
Yeah.
often underneath it is a bubbling core self that
Yes.
is aware of the fact that there could be more that you are doing. Now, of course, this might not apply to everyone. There's so
Hmm.
much nuance in this process. It can be hard to kind of just boil things down to one response. But I think very often when you come to those points where you go, maybe I could have done more. Could I have done more? Could I be challenging things more? Often what lies behind that is a bubbling core
Yes.
awareness that yes, yes,
Yes.
you could be.
Yes. I think that's exactly right. And I also think though, I think there is a tendency perhaps for people to get a bit caught up in like, is this rewiring? Is this nutritional rehabilitation? Is this enough? And as you said, if you're wondering if it's enough, maybe it's worth really getting honest and maybe there is more that you can be doing. But it's also not a binary state. It's not like you're either rewiring and you're not rewiring. Maybe you're rewiring some things, but yes, there is still more work to be done on others. And I think if we want to get really honest about what rewiring looks like, I think that looks like feeling very uncomfortable with every decision that you're making at every point and having that real confidence to say, I didn't let my eating disorder have a win today at this meal, in this moment, wherever it is. It's really about going against any of those eating disorder thoughts. And that even if you're getting that thought of, well, I think I've maybe done enough for today. Have I done enough for today? It's like, well, the fact that you've got that doubt, once again, we come back to if in doubt, do some more. Like if you want to be
Absolutely.
sure that you
Yes.
are rewiring, do
Yes.
some more opposite actions. Eat
Yeah.
something else. Go and get something that your eating disorder disapproves of, because then you are sure. You're like, yeah, this is
Yeah.
enough. I
Yeah.
know that from my core self. I know I haven't compromised anywhere with my eating disorder today. And that's
Yeah.
what rewiring looks like. It looks like
Yeah.
finding the edge of like that bubble, that leash, and going, I'm going to go a bit further.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And the reality is, eating disorder and resistance to behavior change would love you to sit and be
Yeah.
thinking about, am I
Yes.
rewiring, am I not
Yes.
rewiring, is this
Yes.
rewiring? At the end of the day, wherever those thoughts start to bubble,
Hmm.
or where when you watch things like this it starts to make you reflect and think, maybe,
Mm.
I would really encourage anyone in that place to stop thinking
Yes.
and to start doing.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, absolutely the king in recovery is action taking. Yes, absolutely. Your thought and redirection of attention is an important thing, but it is fundamentally
Mm.
all coming back to the actions that you are choosing to take. And that boldness is absolutely imperative. And like you said there, it is on a spectrum. There
Mm.
is there can be that tendency, particularly when you are in that starved state, for a black and white script to apply to everything.
Yes.
Recovery is not about that. Recovery is also not about perfection.
Yeah.
This is a process and it
Hmm.
is about practice. It is about, yes, having slip ups, but very importantly, picking yourself up, dusting yourself off, and then continuing to push forward as
Yeah.
boldly as you possibly can. And it is wherever you are in your day. If you get to a place and you think, could I be being bolder? Could I
Yeah.
be doing more? Bring yourself into that now and get honest with what is the
Yeah.
boldest thing that
Yes.
I could possibly do right now, and focus your energy and your attention on the doing in that moment.
Yes, and that is exactly it. Like it's at every moment, what is the most I could be doing? Like leave yourself no room, leave yourself no doubt that you have done the boldest thing in that
Yeah.
moment that you possibly could. Like that's the ticket to recovery. That's the ticket to rewiring, to nutritional rehabilitation. It does everything for you as long as you are doing that time and time again. And as you say, catching yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think if you set that intention around the fact that there are no ceilings, there
Yeah.
is a floor, there are
Hmm.
no ceilings, and
Hmm.
more is better.
Yes.
That applies, yes, of course, to food, it applies to rest, but it also very much applies to those opposite
Yeah.
actions. And the other thing I want to just bring into this as well is for anyone who finds themselves thinking, oh, well, but I'm doing that. I did that thing, whatever it
Mm.
might be. I did that every week for the last goodness knows how many weeks. Repetition is a crucial component of the rewiring process. There is a need to be repeating, but
Mm.
also in line with that, there is a need for there to be a certain amount of intensity
Mm.
within that repetition. You
Mhm.
may be able to sit and think, well,
Yeah.
am I really doing enough? Because I've been doing this thing every week for the
Yeah.
last few months, but I don't feel any different with it. Or I do feel a little bit, but it's still really niggly.
Mm.
The next step there is to look at how you can be upping the intensity
Yeah.
of that repetition. And in my own recovery, that looked like things like knowing that even though I'd done it lots of times, having a burger and chips was still something that brought up a lot of And so
Yeah.
one of the things I did was I'd be like, right, okay, this week, every single dinner, I'm having burger and chips. I'm
Yeah.
going to do it. I'm going to have
Yeah.
takeaway ones and eaten out ones. I'm going to have homemade ones. I'm going to get different kinds
Yeah.
of ones and just really, really in almost like a shorter term thing, just really attack it head on. And I
Hmm.
noticed by doing that, it was kind of a bit of an experiment in my own recovery journey with that. But I noticed that not only did that have a really positive effect on my neural rewiring around that particular thing,
Yeah.
it also had this kind of domino effect
Yeah.
whereby when I started upping the intensity of repetition of particularly challenging things, going
Mm.
right to the nub of the fears and the rules that were most challenging and got really intensive with challenging them,
Mm.
I noticed this ripple and domino effect to other behaviors and other things, which then when I came to tackle them, I realized that actually almost the neural networking around those had been positively
Yeah.
affected by that more intense work I'd done elsewhere. And that's something when I'm working with coachees as well, is something that I really love to try and encourage that intensity of the
I
repetition.
remember.
I
Yeah.
see lots and lots of people finding that actually that in itself has a very positive effect on neural rewiring.
It does, and you did encourage that with me, and I remember it having, very surprisingly quick
Yeah,
positive effects. And I think that, to answer this question, that's a great thing to bring in is like if you've been doing it for a while and you don't feel that it's actually rewiring maybe as quickly as you would like, okay, we do have to manage expectations there. Um,
yes.
but yeah, it is about being more bold and more intense.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that you brought the expectation there because it's very important at the end of the day. If you have been teaching your brain a set of things for any amount of time, and because when we're talking about eating disorder recovery, those teachings are aligned with something which is key to survival, food,
Yes.
that neural network is going to become wired in fairly swiftly and quite strongly. And so
Yeah.
there absolutely has to be an acceptance that it's not going to happen overnight. You cannot expect to do something for a week and then be like, oh, there we go, I'm
Yeah.
rewired.
Yeah.
But there is absolutely, therefore, a need for that sort of shifting of expectations.
Hmm.
But there is also a need to go, yes, but what can I do to
Yeah.
best support and set myself up to be doing this as swiftly and effectively and efficiently as possible?
That's it. How bold can I be? Yes.
Yes,
Wonderful.
that.
All right. Next question. What if you need to overshoot your set point to fully rewire? And will you actually be able to lose the extra weight afterwards without triggering the eating disorder?
Wow, another
Yeah.
another big question here. I'm loving the. I feel like we're doing a really good tour
Yeah.
de recovery.
Yes, it feels it.
It's good. So this question almost feels like kind of two parts, really.
Mm.
In terms of the overshoot piece, I think it is incredibly important in recovery. And actually, Helly Barnes has got a fabulous book specifically about this topic of
Hmm.
it's titled Aiming for Overshoot or Aiming to Overshoot.
Yes, I'll link
It's a
it. Yeah.
really brilliant resource that. And it kind of speaks to the importance and often necessity of a body that is nutritionally rehabilitating going through a period of overshoot. And I suppose so when it comes to the kind of biological aspect and
Hmm.
the physiological aspect of this conversation, there is a need in recovery to accept that truth. I'm
Yeah.
not saying like and
Yeah.
love, that can grow from it. But fundamentally, often the foundation is that acceptance. It's
Yeah.
the acceptance that at the end of the day, your body needs to do and needs to go where it needs to go in order to be able to fully heal, restore, repair, and recover. And whilst there absolutely can be very real fear, resistant anxiety, uncertainty, guilt around that, some of which and much of which can often stem from the eating disorder itself and the neural network, but also we live in a challenging society to be doing the bold, brave work of really reclaiming body trust
Yeah.
and carving that path and doing the work to get back to that set point place. There is a real need to be allowing that work to happen.
Hmm.
But also, alongside this, I think from a neural perspective, there is also a need to challenge that often fear based drive to label
Yes.
aspects and elements of weight restoration as overshoot.
Yeah.
Because I think when there is too much focus on that, it can really set you up to struggle in
Hmm.
a way that, at the end of the day, often when you think about it as a friend, if a friend or a loved one was on a recovery journey and they were doing the bold work to get their body to their unsuppressed state, if along that journey you were to suddenly start saying to them, oh, well, this is overshoot. This
Yes.
is definitely overshoot. This is overshoot. You do realize, no, that this is overshoot. This is probably going to go away. We can often very instinctively recognize how that would be completely contradictory to
Yes.
trying to nourish a
Yeah.
belief that unsuppressed is best
Yes.
and body trust and all these wonderful things. And I think it's important to bring that clarity we can often access so easily when we think of others
Yeah.
and recognize that we need to be doing that work to apply that to ourselves.
I think that's exactly where I was going to go with this as well, in terms of, well, we don't know what is overshoot, what isn't overshoot. Chances are it might well be true that your set point weight range is much higher than what your eating disorder would like. And we don't know where that is yet. And so there's no benefit to labeling, well, this is overshoot and almost trying to like calm your eating disorder down by that. Because as you said there, like that is totally antithetical to the beliefs that we're trying to create and trying to build that body trust by saying, oh, don't worry, it's, we don't need this extra. And that's why I put that very much in inverted commas. Well, A, we don't know if it's extra, and B,
Yeah.
there is nothing wrong with it, even if it is.
Yes.
So I think it's very much about let's not worry, if you're in this process, let's not worry too much about what is overshoot, what isn't. Let's aim for attacking the eating disorder, being as bold as possible, doing all of the work to fully nutritionally rehabilitate, which may require overshoot or not. We don't need to label it.
Yeah.
And, really breaking all of those rules. That's what we need to focus on. And alongside that, do the body image work, the body acceptance work, the body neutrality work to
Yes.
really be okay. And as you said, don't have to like, don't have to love, but be okay with and to tolerate for as long as you need to the
Yeah.
discomfort in your body. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be once you've accepted it, it's fine. You will have to likely tolerate it for
Yeah.
quite some time to simply get used to it. That's a pretty normal brain thing to have to,
Yeah.
get used to something.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that is, as you said, they are the key things about overshoot. And I think the other part to the question was really around, intervening. And I think both of us would pretty confidently say, well, the whole point of overshoot, if it happens and if it doesn't, is that it requires zero intervention
Yes.
that
Yes.
weight will naturally taper off. So there is not a point here where if you have overshot your body weight that you have to intervene and risk reactivating because absolutely, restriction of any sort will likely reactivate your ED neural network. So
Yeah.
so no, no, do not do that. That is not part of the losing of overshoot weight. So and that's probably the biggest distinction at that point between whether or not it is your set point or whether or not it is overshoot. But the point is that if you're in that weight restoration phase, we don't know yet. We
Yes.
don't know. The whole game here is listening to your body and
Yeah.
trusting it.
Absolutely. And I feel the very kind of the tones of that question really indicate the person who is asking that has work still to do, and there is no shame in that. At the end of the day, as I said earlier, we live in a really challenging environment, not impossible, but a
Yes.
challenging environment that very often throws all sorts of things at us which make it difficult to really accept and
Yeah.
embrace our unsuppressed states.
Yeah.
However, they're absolutely underlying, as I say, that there is that need to be getting honest with the work that is there to do and accepting as well that, there is a place out there in your future where you can make peace and make
Yes.
friends and reclaim trust in your body, wherever your body's set point is. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that that journey is necessarily going to be easy.
Hmm.
Absolutely, it isn't. However, actually, when you allow there to be space for the possibility that
Yeah.
it is there, and you make space also for the fact that none of your beliefs are written in stone.
Yes.
You are not this fixed,
Yes.
immovable, unchangeable thing. Your beliefs, that garden of the things that are important to you, you have the ability to go into that garden, take note of where things have come from and what's planted what and what's
Yes.
serving you now and what isn't serving you. And you get to be the gardener and to
Yes.
turn your attention to the things that you want to be nurturing and growing more, but also turn your attention to where you want to be weeding things out. And so if you are, instead of focusing on, is this overshoot? Is it not? Is it going to change? Can I get rid of it if it goes? I'd encourage anyone to have compassion for themselves. This is
Hmm.
challenging work, but to bring their spotlight of attention towards the fact that there is a space where they can be doing really valuable work to weed out the beliefs that are supporting and encouraging
Yeah.
those drives, those behaviors, and actually look at what they could be nurturing and planting instead that may better serve not just their recovering self, but also their
Mm,
recovered self.
love that. I love that
Yeah.
analogy of the
Yeah.
garden. So
Yes. Yeah.
special.
Yeah. And do we have time for me to add one more thing or do we not?
No, we
I've run.
actually don't. I'm gonna be honest, we've got less than a minute, so I'm gonna have to wrap this up.
Hey, we'll have to do it again.
Yeah.
No worries.
Oh dear, but thank you so much. This has been such a wonderful chat. I've really enjoyed it. And yep, let's do it again because I think we could probably have talked for all afternoon.
Easily,
Yeah.
easily. No,
Yeah.
thank you so much. And if people would like me to come on again, just let Claire know
Yeah.
basically and
Please
send
do.
some questions in the comments below and we can come and do this again. Definitely. I've
Perfect.
loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been amazing.